So we got starting our journey here with Sonic the Hedgehog, everybody's favorite fast blue friend. I mean, this man been a part of everyone's life for many of years, and a lot of people have grown up to him. But this version of Sonic isn't the Sonic I grew up to. Now this Sonic right here is the Sonic I grew up on. Personally for me, I always enjoyed the 3D Sonic aspect and compared to the 2D Sonic. I mean, I just can't get into the whole 2D side scrolling, but no, that's just me. Now when I mention 3D Sonic, I am referring to Sonic pre-360 and PS3 era, as in how when GTA made the transition from the HD era to the 3D era. And I would count Sonic 06 into this because it goes with the timeline, but I couldn't record footage on that, so we're just gonna have to pass on that one. So the main games I'm going to be focusing on are the Sonic Adventure series and Heroes, and I won't be counting any of the side titles like Shuffle and Riders because as far as I know they don't go with the timeline. And as for Shadow the Hedgehog, well, we're going to talk about that later, but let's begin our journey into the first game on this list. So let's start from the beginning with Sonic Adventure 1. My first encounter with Sonic Adventure would be when the Dreamcast came out. They released a demo disc that came with a few demos of multiple games, and one of those games was Sonic Adventure. As I mentioned before, I have previously played the Sonic games back in the Genesis and Saturn era, but like I said, they just didn't stick with me as much as playing the 3D Sonics. So playing the Dreamcast demo, it was just amazing. Like, the first level was the beach level, and of course there you just get immersed into everything that happens off the bat, from getting chased from the well to running on the beach and trying to do all these twists and turns and loops. Like, this was the first time you could see these things in this like camera perspective compared to how it normally is. Just everything is 2D and one-way side scrolling. Eventually my cousin had got the game. I would watch them play. I never really myself played it that much. I think the furthest I would get to would be right after the first fight with Knuckles. I don't think I usually get any further than that. But I used to watch my cousin and my brother just play the game, and they just get far, and I just be like amazed watching them get further in the game, and I'm like, someday I could get there. But you know, as time gets on, you just wait your turn. Eventually I would get my chance to play the game as I got older. The game would release years later down and for the Xbox Live Arcade. Definitely got it then. I also had played it beforehand with my other cousin. He has gotten that one, and Sonic Adventure 2 as well, but I'll get to that when we get there. Now for Sonic Adventure, well, just off the start it already took a different turn. Like, they could have easily went the Sonic Adventure 2 route, and I feel like that's where they messed up going backwards, because Sonic Adventure 1 was definitely way more immersive. Like, the fact that there was an open world 3D hub world, like you can literally travel to different locations to get to the map. There was like a whole storyline going on, the cutscenes going on. Like, it was really just basically what traditional 3D games are like now. Like, the fact that it was just so ahead of its time. I mean, there were Sonic games that was, you know, quote unquote 3D that beforehand, but like this was the first time it went all out 3D, and it was just mind blowing. Like, being able to just sit there and walk around in the city as cars passing by, seeing the pedestrians standing around and walking around, going to different parts of the buildings, going to different parts of the cities, the jungle. It's like, it makes you feel like you're a part of this world, and you're really experiencing everything that goes around in this little city. And it makes you also care about what's going on when you're trying to like stop Eggman from his plans. Other than that, the gameplay wise, the story is gone by multiple characters, which I believe this is probably the first time you can actually beat, well, not beat, but this is the first time where Sonic is not the only main character. There's also 5 other characters aside from Sonic, which would be Tails, Knuckles, Amy, Big, and Gamma. the robot, which also indicates the first time you get to play with somebody that's on Eggman's side as well. But his story does make a turn. So for each character, Sonic story starts off as normal. He just goes deal with Eggman issues, but as you play with all the other characters, you start to realize that everyone's stories are kind of intertwined, and there's also a foreshadowing with the flashback of how this all relates to what's going on, with the main villain being Chaos rather than Eggman, because of course it's usually what happens with Eggman character. Like, usually he tries to revive like this ancient evil that he wants to take control of, but it never goes his way in the end. So all the characters, I believe not all the characters, but I think all of them do eventually like get transported to like some part of the past. It basically reveals why Chaos is who he is now, so it gives you some backstory. But it is dope that how all the characters' story intertwine, and some of them take place before or after, so you get different perspective on how Chaos became like even stronger and grow, and what other people were doing while other people were like off away. And there's also times where you can actually encounter other characters while walking through the open world, so you know like, oh, while this character is doing this, Sonic was doing that. So it's interesting, like the amount of details they put into this game to tell this story. Like I said, off their first try of doing like an open world 3D Sonic game was just amazing. I always believed that the Dreamcast console itself was ahead of its time as well. Sadly, it did not get to live up to what it should have. I felt like that's where the Xbox came in. I felt like the Xbox saw where it failed and succeeded, and it took it and ran with it. Aside from the storyline and the gameplay, I mean, gameplay is amazing. Like I said, for me, the 3D is more better, more immersive. The fact that you can actually attack, I don't even think you can attack in 2D, but it's like it gotta be timed. Like, you just gotta just perfectly land on top of the enemy. It's the same thing like Mario, you step on the enemy and then they die. But it's like the fact that he does a spin dash or a homing attack, Knuckles punches, Tails does his spinning twirl with his cells. Amy has the bat. So I don't believe Big does not have any combat. His is the most frustrating, because all he does is fish, which can be, if you don't know how it works, it can be a little bit of a headache. Gamma, he's a freaking full-fledged robot who shoots launchers and bullets out his arm. So just the action pack of it. So it's not only just about running fast, but it's just about the action, the open world, the immersion. Like, you are these characters and you are engaged in what's going on in this storyline, and it's just amazing how it all comes together. Now, following that, Sonic throughout all his generations, 2D, 3D, the HD, when it comes to soundtrack, like, even when the games don't get it right, the soundtrack usually gets it right. And I think that's one thing the Sonic fan base can all agree on. It's like, when it comes to the soundtrack, Sonic usually do not miss, and this game is no exception. Like, this is the first time they actually tried, I want to say, this is not the first time they did vocals, but this is the first time they incorporated like rock music and vocals. I believe they tried in Sonic Racing, the music was more poppy, so this one became more rock metal. The lead, usually the main people who sings Sonic songs is Crush 40, but there's usually other people as well. But yeah, like, just how the music, just from the opening's title to the music and the gameplay. scenes, and it's like it just all fits and immerse you perfectly. Like you can feel one way in one level, it shows you how you feel in one way in the next level. It just everything just comes together as one perfect blend, and you get the great mixture that is Sonic Adventure. Sonic Adventure, to me, to this day, is my second favorite Sonic. It used to be my first, but as time got over and I started to like really, I want to say, I guess nostalgia played more of a factor into it, but I say it got bumped down to the second place for me. But don't take nothing away from, like, this game did set the blueprint for like how 3D Sonic games are meant to play. And unfortunately, I felt like when they tried too much with the next game I'm going to speak about, and that's where things kind of got mixed. So that's where we're going to go. But other than that, that is Sonic Adventure 1. An amazing game for its time, probably ahead of its time when it came out, but it was definitely a great first take on the 3D aspect of Sonic. So now we enter our second game of the entry, and this is this direct sequel to the Sonic Adventure game, and the next game that starts into a timeline which opens up that there is a continuing timeline. If you notice some things, they do reference some things that happened in the previous game that directly connects it to being a timeline, which is why I consider all of this to be one story, and this is why I hold this specific section of the Sonic era to a closer standard. Now, despite it being a fan favorite amongst most of the Sonic fandom, this game for me does not really hold that strong of memories for me because I have not had a lot of playtime with it compared to how I played Sonic Adventure and Heroes. They have introduced some good things that are a staple in the Sonic games going forward, but they had removed things as well, which gave me mixed feelings to this game, and why I felt like it was a backwards decision compared to playing the first Sonic Adventures compared to this one. Now, this game is also known for a lot of things when it comes to the sound quality, but it's just the same as the first game where it had bad mouth animation, but I'm not gonna crack on that. I'm just strictly talking about the game from a whole standpoint of the storyline and how it was made. Now, when I first started playing this game, I was introduced to it through a third party. When I played the game through my cousin, who also had the first Sonic Adventure as well as Sonic Shuffle, and for some reason I gravitated towards the other games more than this game. The only thing that was mainly cool about it was the fact that we had a second hedgehog, which was Shadow, and I will get into him because he is the key focus into why this also continues as a good storyline, but I'll have to explain that a little bit more afterwards. So I didn't get the game again until it dropped on the Xbox Live Arcade just as Sonic Adventure 1, and that's when I finally got my hands to play on it, and that's when I started to notice some things. Now, I have heard over the years that this game kind of did age with time, but I wasn't really sure because I had not beat the game when it originally released on the Dreamcast. So playing it for the first time will be on the Xbox 360, so I would assume that how the game runs there would be similar, but I can't specifically tell from experience. So I've noticed that it do have some issues with Sonic connecting his attacks compared to the first game, where it'll feel a little bit more fluid. Compared to this game, it seems like Sonic won't even know that an enemy is there, and that's even worse on the PC port, which is where I recorded this footage from. And there's been times where I was trying to play through the game before I even recorded the video, and I flat out just stopped because it was just felt terribly made, because I have not played the original game, so I don't have anything to reference, for example. So I'm not sure if this game was just bad with age when they was making this game, or if it's just wrongly ported compared to how it originally played on the Dreamcast and it got messed up with the mechanics. Yeah, so let's talk about the things that was changed and added and removed. The open world system in this game that I love so much in Sonic Adventure 1 is no longer available in Sonic Adventure 2. I don't know why they decided to make that decision to make it a stage by stage base, but for me that was a step backwards because I thoroughly enjoyed the open world aspect as it gave it more immersion to the game, as now it just felt like you're just playing a normal game that just goes stage by stage. This game also introduced a system that has been a staple in the Sonic game going forward, which is the grading system. When you beat a level in Sonic Adventure 1, there's really no grading system, so you don't know how well you've done or not. But this game, you are now graded by how well you played, which is a good thing because it strives for you to try to go back again and try to beat the game better, so you can strive for that perfect A on all the games. So this game also removed the character by character system that was introduced in Sonic Adventure 1 and making it now a two-sided story where it's Team Good and Team Evil, where you follow two different teams and they each have their own specific gameplays that copy each other. So with Sonic, it's usually just the running action stages. Knuckles is the search stages where he finds his Chaos Emeralds, well, the pieces to the Master Emeralds, and Tails is, which honestly was a big downgrade for me because his missions on the Sonic Adventure ones were tolerable compared to this. It's just him running around in that mech suit and it's just terrible because it's so slow and bad, and there's been a lot of times where it's like I've died for no reason, or not even so more reason, it's just bad to control. It's like not all the time he hits his targets and stuff. It's just bad. And going with the Team Evil, it's basically the same thing with each character's counterpart, where Shadow plays the same thing as Sonic, Rouge the Bat, which is a new character as well to Shadow, and she does the same thing as Knuckles, and Dr. Eggman, which this time you can actually play as Dr. Eggman compared to playing with people that just work for him. But they also gave him the same storyline as Tails, where he just plays in his robot suit and it's just the same situation. Now going back into Shadow, which is usually the reason why a lot of people like this game, because it introduces this interesting character. And I won't explain the characters too deeply here as well, because his story will continue on down the line, so I'll continue wrapping it up as we go. But his story starts off here, giving a new perspective of a character who is not sure who he is and what he should do. All he has is his memory of a close friend of his in the past, which is Maria, and he wasn't sure about her message, if he should save the people of Earth or destroy them because of what happened to her. He eventually finds his path and finds what's the right decision for him to do, and that leads into a very dramatic moment for him towards the end, and I'll touch into that. They also introduce a new character, which will be Rouge the Bat. She will play mainly the counterparts of Knuckles. They both do the same thing, and they both compete with each other when it comes to finding gems and emeralds, but she's more of a thief compared to Knuckles, is trying to find the gems so he can restore them, as she just wants them for her personal gain. And we also learn that she's also a spy for the government, and she's there to infiltrate Dr. Eggman base to find out what Project Shadow is, which would be Shadow the Hedgehog himself. So this is also another situation of Dr. Eggman trying to revive an ancient evil, which this is a creation from his grandfather who created Shadow. He revives him not 100% knowing what it is he's capable of. At first he mistaked him for Sonic, but they eventually realized that he's someone else, and he uses him to help so he can gain control over the world. Now, gameplay mechanic, like I said, is mainly the same as the first game, aside from removing the open world aspect, everything, and changing how some characters play. Knuckles was doing the same thing in Sonic Adventure 1 as well. Did I mention that? His stages stays the same, which kind of sucks, because being that his character is more, when you know him for, is a fighter, but he just flies around searching for stuff, which can be a headache when you don't know the level layout and stuff, and you are just searching for hours. Like, there's been times where I've just been left searching and searching and searching, and the hints is like kind of vague sometimes. It's just terrible. But that goes into that. This game, I'm not sure if it's just made a way to annoy you, or if it was made to be difficult or not, but there's been a lot of cases where this game has just straight up stressed me out. Like, mostly Knuckles and Rouge stage. Like, there is a stage, I believe, for Rouge where she travels to different parts of like planets and stuff, and it's like you're just in this huge area and you gotta find these 3 gems, and there's just so much going on because they play with the gravity in different areas. So sometimes you're upside down, sometimes you're not, and then you gotta find the right area. It's just a lot of things going on. I don't know why they did that. I don't know if they thought that was fun, but it wasn't for me. I didn't really enjoy it, and that is also why this game don't hold that high up into my list as well. If I was to grade it based on these 3 games, this would definitely be the 3rd favorite of my Sonic games. And as well, going with Tails again or Dr. Eggman, either one, when you play with their characters, like, they always do that thing where they give the enemy opponent something different from you, but they're supposed to be the same characters, and it just makes it frustrating. Like, there's been so many times I struggled fighting Dr. Eggman because he would just like shoot this huge Gallic gun out his machine, and like, since when he can do that? And it's just annoying. But the game is overall, it is what it is. It's Sonic, but it's just, I feel like it wasn't properly tweaked compared to the first Avenger game. Like, it really felt like they put their all in the first game, and then the second game they kind of just relaxed. Like, they were trying to tell a story more than trying to make a video game, and that was the problem. Compared to the first one, they did a bit of both, even though we could have done without big storyline. But it's the fact that he was there and they still added more. And of course, as always, as I mentioned in the last one, the soundtrack, they stepped it up even more in this one. Most of the levels and just some of the background songs in the game is just amazing. Probably some of the most favorite songs of the whole Sonic universe and franchise as a whole from most of the fandom. Some of my favorite songs are on here as well. Thus making the whole package of the game and experience something worth playing for a while. Whether it's just the gameplay is mediocre but the soundtrack is good, or for some people maybe the gameplay is excellent. Maybe it's just me doing bad, I'm not sure. But I don't have a whole lot to say about this game because my memory and my time with this game hasn't been a lot and pleasant. But it's still a game that I can still enjoy for what it is and cherish for what it is, but I won't hold it too high on my list of Sonic games. But overall, it does open up the door for more, and that's where we go into that. But that is Sonic Adventure 2, and we will move on to the next game. So here we are on the 3rd entry of this list, and this is Sonic Heroes. This is my personal favorite game, and this game as well does continue the timeline in a way, but I'll get to that. This game is just flat out amazing in every way for me. I don't think this is huge on the fandom. I haven't really met other people that really enjoy this game the way I do. I mean, I'm sure you can go in the comment section and see like people talk about it, but just the sheer love that I have for this game, I don't think I have met anyone that matched it. I have been a big advocate on this game being ported to PC or some kind of digital store, because this is one of the few games that you actually had to own the original copy, and they were mainly physical, whether it be PC or the consoles that they came out on. I mean, I'm sure there's ways you could find around it, but for me, I do want to support this game fully. So for me, I still own the physical disc of the Xbox version, and I had to play it on the 360, which was the way I had to record this gameplay. And yeah, with that being said, this was actually also the first time Sonic has crossed over to the Xbox platform. Originally Sonic was always Sega until the Dreamcast kind of just faded out. But even when the Dreamcast came out, Sonic Adventure 2 actually made its way to the GameCube, being that was huge actually, because Sega and Nintendo were the original console wars before Xbox and Sony came into the picture. Yeah, so when this game came out, the Dreamcast was pretty much dead and gone by this time. So Sonic was kind of a free agent, just hopping on different platforms. So this was the first time it made its way to Xbox, because at this time I became an Xbox fan and I was extremely excited that this was here. I also noticed that with all these Sonic games, I never personally went out and searched for these games. Like, I have always been introduced to these games through a third party somehow, whether it be a cousin owning the console or the game before me, and thus it persuaded me to get it myself eventually when it was available. So I got this game when it came out for the Xbox, not day one, but when it was still brand new. Just off the fact that I only played the multiplayer of this game with my cousin beforehand, and that was just enough to make me fall in love with the game. It was just a small fraction. I didn't know much about the storyline. I didn't know what was going on. I just knew that it was fun. Play with 3 people, and so with that being said, I'm going to break down the game structure, the teams, the levels, and the story. So this may take a bit longer than the others because there's actually more to play with compared to the other games. And originally there was actually supposed to be a lot more, but they realized that it was too much and things were changed. Originally Shadow was not supposed to be in this game because he was, we were to believe that he was dead after Sonic Adventure 2, but you know, the fandom brought him back. As I said, people fell in love with him in Sonic Adventure 2, and I'll get into that more because Shadow's story is important for the overall timeline from this point on. So like I said, there's a 4-team structure this time, so it's not character by character, and it's not just a 2-sided story. You get 4 different teams. It's a 3-person team, going from Team Sonic, Team Dark, Team Rose, and Team Chaotix, and they each had different difficulties or different mission structures. So going with our easiest difficulty is Team Rose, which gives us Amy, Cream, and Big. Amy and Big were not playable in Sonic Adventure 2, but they were present one way or another. So that marks their return since the first adventure game. And we also got introduced to for me, it was a new character in Cream. I believe Cream made her debut in the advanced game first, and then eventually came over to Heroes. So we got that team, and they are the easy difficulty. The fact that the game, when you actually play with them, you get the tutorial mission. All the other teams do not get that, and it's actually an optional choice if you want the tutorial. But with Team Rose, you have to do it, like it's part of their story structure. So with them, mainly their levels are just cut in half, so it's a lot quicker and a lot faster to beat their overall story compared to all the others. And even to their ultimate special move, the Team Blast is kind of like a OP thing, because every Team Blast have an after effect, and theirs is kind of like OP. But every character, there's a speed, flight, and power. Amy is the speed, Biggs is the power, and Cream is the flight. Flight is used to get to higher ground or to defeat any flying enemies that you can't normally reach with Amy or Big. There's sometimes a way to work around flight characters with speed characters doing a homing attack, but that's if they are perfectly lined that way to get across certain areas. But most of the part, you want to use your flight characters. Your power characters deal with more heavily shielded enemies, as well as destroying any structures that's are in the way from preventing you from moving forward. And your speed characters is, well, I mean, if you played any 3D Sonic game from this point on, is the usual. You run fast, do homing attacks. As well, they all have like this tornado technique, but they each have a different way of doing it, where Rose throws her hammer real strong and throws a tornado at the enemy, which actually marks hers is the only tornado that can be used as a projectile. The others, you kind of had to stand still and do it, so that makes hers unique. So their story is kind of simple. Amy just misses Sonic as usual, so she wants to see him. Cream, she has 2 child, and one of them is missing, which is Jacola. And Big, once again, he lost his frog, which that's kind of like his thing in every time he pops up. So Froggy's missing and Chocola is missing, and Sonic is being Sonic. And the only clue to finding their friends again is actually from a newspaper clipping that has a picture of Sonic running with Chocola and Froggy. So for some reason they believe that Sonic has took them. We don't know why, but that's what we're going to find out, and that's mainly their whole purpose of starting their gameplay. They're just trying to find Sonic to find their missing friends. But as you go through the game with each character, you're gonna realize that there's more to the story going on, but we'll get to that the more we keep explaining it. So as I was saying, each team do have a team blast, which is like a group ultimate finishing attack where for Team Rose they do like this little kind of formation dance. It usually just wipes out any enemy that's in the area, and each team blast comes with like an after effect. So for Team Rose they get invincibility as well, each get a level up, which actually introduces a level system in this game. You can level up each character by 3. That will make them more stronger to certain enemies, which reduces how long it takes for you to destroy them and how more capable you are to like just get by a lot of enemies all at once. I think this is actually the only game that has that kind of system. I would say it sucks that it's no longer in any Sonic game, but I think it's perfect for having a team structure. Like if Sonic himself in a solo player game was just level up, would kind of be weird. Like I don't know, it'll feel more. Well, they kind of did it in Sonic 06, but I'm not going to touch on that. And yeah, that's mainly that. Team Rose, and this one is kind of a toss-up because it's not so much hard, but it can be annoying on certain missions. But I'm gonna go with Team Chaotix being the next kind of easiest. Theirs are kind of actually different because their levels are mission based compared to usually you just gotta race to the end of the goal. So you actually have to complete a certain amount of goals to complete the level, and that can be tricky depending on what the level is for some people, and I have noticed some frustration as well when I first started playing this game. We get the new, well technically not new, but this team actually debuted it back in probably the Genesis era too. I think it was Sonic Chaotix or Knuckles Chaotix, one of those games. Like I said, me and the 2D games, I can't quote a lot on what really happened, but they have appeared before. It's not their first time being here, but this is their first time in the 3D aspect. So we have SBO, Charmy, and Vector. Of course, SBO is our speed, and he's also a ninja. Being a chameleon, he has the ability to turn invisible when he does his tornado attack, which allows him to bypass enemies, and this actually can be useful for a certain mission in the game as well. Vector is just our muscles, and Charmy is our flight. That's mainly that. Charmy also has an ability to open up these flower buds that are hidden in the game, which allows them to teleport to another flower bud, so it's another form of transportation. Their team blast consists of them playing a song, because apparently they are abandoning their original storyline. But they are terrible, so when you play it you hear like basically noise, and their special, each time they destroy an opponent they get money for like double the money you normally get, so that's a quick way to earn your team blast quickly again after you use it. I mainly recommend just using the team blast for boss fights, as it's just a quick way to get by. But other than that, their storyline is interesting as well. They are actually a team of detectives, but they aren't doing so well in the payment department because they are short on rent, and they finally get a job opportunity through a form of a walkie-talkie where there's a mysterious person who wishes to hire them for their services. This person is actually held captive, and they promise to reward them through payment once they free them. So that's their mission. They are going to help whoever this mysterious person is from being captured and get paid so they can finally pay the rent. And that's mainly it. And being detectives, they will question some things going on in their storyline that don't seem to add up, even with the person who hired them. So probably notice the twist before it happens, which I'm going to tell the twist later on, but not this moment. but that's mainly their storyline. Next, going into our, I guess this would be the normal mode, which would be Team Sonic, because theirs is just honestly as bare bones as it get. I mean, we know the trio by now: Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails. We know what they're capable of. We know what they do, and this is finally probably one of them rare times where Knuckles can actually be used for fighting rather than searching for things, so he can be used to his full potential. And their Team Blast is just like a group effort into launching Sonic into doing the ultimate home run attack. It's nothing special, but it's interesting that after you use it for a short amount of time, Sonic Tornado Attack can be turned into the home run attack for a short amount of time. But that's mainly it. This story is kind of it's kind of a weird one as well. Sonic was just minding his business, running around. Tails and Knuckles go find him and hand him a flyer where Dr. Eggman tells him flat out that he's doing evil stuff and don't interrupt. Like, if you didn't want him to know, why did you send him a flyer? So face value, it sounds like it was just an excuse to make a Sonic game, but of course we eventually learned that there is actually more to the story that meets the eye. So that's mainly their story, just to stop Eggman from doing the evil thing he said he didn't want them to stop him from. And that's that. Then we go into our hard difficulty and our most interesting team, Team Dark, where we see the return of Shadow the Hedgehog, the return of Rouge the Bat, and we get a new character in the form of Omega, who is a part of the E-series like Gamma from the original Sonic Adventure. I would guess the E-series was discontinued after Adventure because Gamma destroys them all, including himself, and Omega was left, I guess he was just left behind to rot. So Rouge infiltrates Eggman base to steal his treasure, but she ends up finding Shadow. The last time we seen Shadow, we saw that he made the ultimate sacrifice, and he was falling from space into Earth, which, you know, we could presume that didn't end well for him once he collided. But for some reason, here he is, alive and well in the chamber, and beside him is Omega, who wants to eradicate all remnants of Eggman and his robots, which is an interesting point I'm going to bring up soon. So Shadow, you also notice that he actually have amnesia. He do not remember anything that happened in Sonic Adventure 2. He doesn't even know who he is, but for some reason he's in the Eggman base and that's his only lead. And of course Rouge know who he is, but she for some reason decides not to really tell him anything. So that's that. So this story is basically find Dr. Eggman for various reasons. Omega wants to destroy him, Shadow wants to question him, and Rouge wants to steal from him. So that's their story. As I said, as we go through the game, we notice that all the stories are going to intertwine because there is something lurking in the background. We notice it more through Team Dark and Team Sonic stories, not so much the others. Probably Amy's. Well, at the end of Amy's, and as well as Team Chaotix. It's tricky. You gotta pay attention for it. It's like short audio cues. So yeah, with Team Dark, we also get to notice that it's a possibility that Shadow may be a robot because we get a cutscene where they destroy the Shadow robot. So being that Shadow don't remember who he is a possibility that he has nothing to remember because he is just a creation. Even Dr. Eggman teases him about it, saying that he has no past to remember when questioned about it. And as I mentioned earlier, Omega said that he wants to eradicate all Eggman robots, and he was targeting Shadow when they first met. So it's a possibility that he scanned Shadow as a robot. We're not sure until we get the ending cutscene where Rouge finally gets to Eggman's treasure room and finds out that it's just a room full of Shadow clones. She's believed that Shadow was just a clone the whole time as well. Omega hints that the original had to exist for there to be a clone. and we get a small audio cue where Shadow kind of hints that he remembers what happens in the past, so hinting that this is actually the real Shadow. We get that reveal more in the Shadow the Hedgehog game, but I am not playing that game for obvious reasons. That game has too many endings, and yeah. So after you beat all 4 levels, you are tasked with getting the 7 Chaos Emeralds, and you will realize that there's actually a 5th hidden level, Team Last. There's usually always like the special ending, so you can play with Supersonic. They did it at the end of Adventure, they did it at the end of Adventure 2, and now we're doing it here. So we realized through Team Chaotic storyline that the person who was on the other side of the walkie-talkie that hired them was none other than Dr. Eggman himself. We find out that Dr. Eggman was technically not responsible for everything that happened in the game because he was actually being held a prisoner. And we find out that the person who held him prisoner was none other than Metal Sonic. He makes his grand return since probably the Genesis Saturn era as well, being a playable character or just being a villain overall. So we get a lot of returning people from the old games coming into this game, which is sweet, I guess, for the fans who've been part of the Sonic game like since the 2D era. For me, some of it was like new. I knew who Metal Sonic was, but his design in this game was not the design I knew, so I was like, who is this? So some of it was new to me when I first played this game, which was fun because it was like, yeah, it felt brand new. Everything was just new. Even from playing the first adventure, Chaos was new. Second adventure, Shadow was new. And now here we got a brand new take on Metal Sonic. Yeah, so we, show him the power of teamwork. He transforms into a giant robot monster. Sonic does his super thing, and we defeat him. And that mainly ends that game. Of course, soundtrack as well. This is probably my favorite Sonic soundtrack of all times. Even when I was younger, some songs didn't 100% resonate with me because I thought some of them was like but as I get older, I learned to appreciate it more, and I just like love every song. Like, I'm probably gonna play a few more songs than I did in the previous games to show my favorite songs, but here's a few.
We can make it, we all stay together, we won't give up, not ever, and everything's gonna be alright. The power that is me, we are destined for the driverless machine, don't know how. Anywhere you wanna go, anything you need to know, all the best in life, I wanna get it for you. Self-detectives, you all on your side. Hey, trying to reach inside of me, trying to gain my energy. Let me show you just what I'm made of.
And that wraps up Sonic Heroes. I don't know what much more to say about this game other than I just love it a lot. But we will wrap up this whole video and timeline now. Alright, so now that we finished talking about the 3 main games in my list, I just want to finish talking about the timeline and wrap up the other games that I could not speak on because I could not record the footage of it. So as I mentioned, Shadow's storyline actually does continue on forward from here, and his story is what makes this whole timeline kind of more relevant. So as I mentioned, the fandom loved him so much that the fact that they revived him to bring him back into Sonic Heroes and then eventually get himself a spin-off game in Shadow the Hedgehog. Unfortunately, for some reason, they decided to take a different route with Shadow. Instead of him just being a copy and paste of Sonic, they wanted to make him different. They made him use weapons and drive vehicles in the game, which kind of sounds weird, being that he's basically as fast as Sonic in speed, or in some cases possibly faster. So that game was already not looking too good. So the fact that the game has multiple endings as well is also another bad thing. I believe there's actually 10 endings, then there's the final ending, just so you can find out what the real story is. So I'm going to wrap up the stories as quick as possible. So going from the Sonic Adventure timeline, of course, you can look at that as its own story, but like I said, there's some things that happen in Sonic Adventure 2 that kind of refers to what happens in Sonic Adventure 1, so that's why it's continuing to the timeline. And of course, it doesn't help the fact that the game is titled as a sequel to Sonic Adventure. With Sonic Adventure 2, we get Shadow. His story is that he was created by Dr. Eggman's grandfather, and he befriended Maria. They were close friends, and then for some reason the government got wind of an experiment that he was doing, and I guess they wanted to take him out, but they decided to arrest him, and Maria helped free Shadow to escape, and the government decided to take her life. Of course, that led to Shadow being upset with people on Earth because they blamed humanity for killing his true friend. Like I said, he misinterpreted her promise into destroying them instead of helping them. Of course, we learned that her promise was to basically for him to forgive any wrongdoing that happens and to give them a chance and basically protect them. So he finally does that at the end of Sonic Adventure 2, where he makes the sacrifice to stay behind and fall to his death. And then Sonic Heroes, we find out that Dr. Eggman actually recovered his body and basically helped revive him and decided to clone him. But that he ends up having amnesia. He doesn't remember what happened in Sonic Adventure 2, and of course I explained that he believes that he's actually just another clone, which we learned in the Shadow the Hedgehog game that he is not. The truth about Shadow's creation is that he's actually infused with an alien DNA called Black Doom, if I'm not mistaken, for him to be the ultimate life form. That's what they had to do. Like I said, that storyline, they don't even talk about it after that game, so that's why I don't really count that game anymore, so that sucks. But then Sonic 06 happens, and I believe that game is more Shadow's game than Sonic's. From a storyline standpoint, Shadow and Silver actually have a bigger storyline compared to Sonic, being the fact that Sonic does not even encounter the main villain of the game until the final stage of the game. He's been dealing with that Eggman the entire time, while Shadow and Silver was dealing with who was the main cause of everything that was happening. So by the time Shadow ends, he was making a decision whether he should really be a good guy and help people, or just flat out become evil and embrace his true nature of what Black Doom wanted him to be. So we see that in Sonic 06, he becomes a good guy. He starts working with the government. Him and Rouge is basically just a team. Then it's a whole timeline we find out about him and Silver going into the past, deal with ancient evil again being revived. And it decided to take the form of Shadow, so that's why when they meet again, he looks like him. He just basically trying to show Shadow that no matter what he do, the people will always treat him as a villain, showing that his future is that he will actually end up being killed by Omega, which is his own friend in the team. But he decided to say that don't matter to him. If they decide to become his enemies, then he will fight them, but until then he will just keep protecting them and live the way he want to live. And that's mainly his story, just finding his true self and finding his own cause in life, and basically keeping his promise to Maria. Yeah, so those are the main 3 games of this timeline and my favorite era of the Sonic franchise for me. I just really love these games in this moment in time because they mean a lot to me growing up. So there's been times, like, even though I grew up with siblings and cousins, but at the time I was mostly the youngest for most of my cousins and siblings, so I wasn't really hanging out with them as they got older and got into different things. Compared to me, I was still into gaming, and these games are what like kept me company, just playing these games, mainly Sonic Heroes, because that was the one I actually owned during my childhood, as Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 I didn't get until later in the 360 era, which was my teen years. And yeah, these games they're just a comfort zone for me. They're those games that was there for me when nothing else was there for me. From just the scenery, the immersion, the story, the soundtrack, everything about the whole universe and this whole timeline just wraps up my childhood, and it would kept me going, it kept me happy. I'm not dealing with any struggles or any frustrations, like when something bothering me or whatever. I know I had these games. And yeah, so I would like to say thank you to Sega for bringing us an amazing franchise and amazing games into my life. This is actually the 30th anniversary of Sonic the Hedgehog, which is all the more reasons why I wanted to do this video, to show my appreciation to this franchise that I've been a part of people's lives for 30 years, and hopefully it continues to keep being a part of everyone's lives. I would love to someday have my kids grow up on Sonic. That would be amazing. But all in all, this is it. I've been Digital Relaxation, and this is my little love story to the Sonic 3D era timeline. I hope you guys enjoyed. Like, share, subscribe if you haven't, and all that good stuff. See you guys in the next video. Peace.